It's almost time. It's 5:10. Okay, it's 5:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission. Today's Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. The land that we know as Squam was once inhabited solely by First Peoples known as the Squalum people, represented by the three tribal governments, Lower Elwha Squalum, Jamestown Squalum, and Port Gamble Squalum. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Sequim with the same care and consideration the Squalum tribes has and has continued to provide. This acknowledgement is a respect to the Squalum people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Sequim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Sequim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protection, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all of the powers and perform each and all of the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth or amended by ordinance. Roll call. Emily, will you please take roll call, noting that Commissioner Lefevre is excused absent today?
Yes. Commissioner Kuntz.
Present.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Commissioner Fain. Commissioner Habel. Commissioner Hewitt. And Commissioner Mihalik.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. This is for the August 26, 2025 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? And if so, is there any discussion or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, minutes pass. Public comment, general public comment will be heard at this time. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. We don't have any public hearings tonight, so this is the opportunity to provide public comment. Seeing nobody in the room from the public, Emily, is there anybody online?
There is no one online.
Okay, then at this time, I will close the public comment session. And we will move on to general business and the 2025 comprehensive plan update.
Thank you. So as our standing agenda item for our status update on the comprehensive plan, I actually don't have too much to update from our meeting last week, but you can see from the memo that we are continuing to move along on our list of topics. I did want to note, I guess I would say on the schedule, that we did have the Title 17 Land Division Ordinance identified as a potential topic for the 2nd September meeting, but Travis and I spent an all-day workshop today. I don't think we're going to be quite ready to bring that forward for you in 2 weeks, so we are proposing to bring forward the site-specific amendment applications that we've received. So it was going to be a topic, one of the things on the November 4th meeting, but it certainly can be a standalone where Travis will present the 11 applications that we've received from private property owners, talk through the meetings that we had with them, the merits of each of them, and how they fit in with the conversation that the Planning Commission had earlier this year on the future land use map. So we're going to propose bringing that forward to you at the next meeting this month. And then in addition to that, I have put together a development regulation update work plan and approach that I'd like to present to you at the next meeting as well. So those will be the anticipated agenda items, and then we'll slide Title 17 to second or the first meeting in October, basically to be reviewed in October. So hopefully that sounds good. And then the only other update I have is that we'll, in light of the work plan for the development regulation update that I just mentioned, that the first step in any comprehensive plan or development regulation update is you need to develop a public participation plan. And so it's a very generalized plan. It's high level, but it is something that has to get a pass by the city council by resolution. So I'll be bringing that forward for first touch to city council on Monday. And then hopefully if they agree, will be adopted by resolution on the consent agenda on the 22nd, and be presenting the work plan to you on the September 16th meeting, as I just mentioned. So that is all my status updates for you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Carla? Are we all good with moving forward with the slight changes that she's made? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to new business, which will be the draft of the capital facilities chapter. And who is going to be first on that one?
Yes. Well, I will give you, I'd like to start off with some introductory comments on the capital facility and utilities chapter. And then, as you know, our city engineer is here tonight to answer any questions as we go through the chapter. Last week, you guys had hit a high water mark on your number of questions. I was super glad that we had our special guest here to help with it. And you guys did a great job, honestly, navigating that new element. So for capital facilities, I wanted to just provide you a little bit of framework that I think might be helpful as you consider this chapter and as we work through it tonight. So capital facilities, you might recall, I know it's been a couple months, but kind of in our presentation about like what is a comprehensive plan, you'll recall that it's a three-legged stool. If you think of it that way, you've got a policy document, which is what we have been working on the last few months. We have a capital facility plan, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then a future land use map that then translates into the zoning map and how land gets developed. So we're going to talk a bit tonight about the second leg of that three-legged stool, which is the capital facility plan. And the capital facility plan, or the capital facility approach to that the Growth Management Act requires is two things. One is an element, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, which is goals and policies, and includes city capital facilities as well as some private utilities. And again, these are like the goals and policies that we've been doing for the last few months. But there's also a second piece to this chapter that's not necessarily the same with the other chapters, and that's the capital facility plan. And that will be coming later. It will likely come in the beginning of the year. And the capital facility plan is is basically the summarization of each of the city's utility plans and the transportation plan and the parks and open space plan. So it has existing conditions, level of service, and then it identifies the impact, impacts to the capital facilities based on the growth projections of people, housing, and jobs. And then identifies a list of needed improvements over the 20-year planning period, and then prioritizes those improvements through the 6-year capital improvement plan, or the CIP. And so all of that work is very technical, but it is honestly the foundation of city's core services, which is planning for and then doing capital improvements. But tonight's piece is the policy work, the narrative and the policy work. And so I just wanted to kind of refresh that what this chapter is, and that there's more coming as far as the capital facilities and the elements that are the components that will be in the capital facility plan will be water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, transportation, parks and open space. And then there's other things the Growth Management Act requires to be in the capital facility plan: schools, law enforcement, fire, and public buildings. So those pieces will also be in the capital facility chapter. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, for your review of the chapter, and happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have on kind of the what we're doing tonight and what's to come.
Okay, thank you. So let's start with the first page, capital facilities and utilities, chapter 6.0. And it starts off with going down and, the context. How about this first page? Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
The fourth paragraph, you just have like a hard return
Oh, yeah,
in the
thank
middle
you.
of it.
Okay, Eileen?
In the transportation plan, I kind of kicked over into like public transportation, the bus system. That's all county, and we just have, a cooperative thing with them coming into the city, and we don't have any responsibility we give them any money for.
Oh, I'm not sure if we do. Some jurisdictions do, but the transits are pretty well funded publicly from the state and federal dollars these days. Public transit will be a component of the transportation master plan, but will not be included in the capital facility plan.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Anything else on page 1 before we move to the second one? Okay. Okay, second page starts out up at the top with 6.2, goals and policies. How about this one? Anybody have anything on this page, Eileen?
Down on the CF 1.1, number 4, it talks about maintaining and rehabilitate city facilities and infrastructure. Is there like a rotating plan for like vehicles that need replacement after? I've had mine for 25 years. I don't think you keep yours for 25 years, but there should be some kind of replacement schedule. And it looks like I'm going to get an answer.
Yes, hi. So for purposes of the record, Nick Dosty, City Engineer, Deputy Director of Public Works. As far as management of our fleet goes, that is currently under asset management at Shackelford. And he is developing a formal program, not only to assess the condition of vehicles and equipment, but also come up with a replacement plan and program. And more importantly, a funding program that he's working with the director on to make sure that when we purchase a vehicle or piece of equipment, whether it is brand new or new to us, that there is a replacement evaluation and plan. So that way, when we get to the life span of that vehicle or piece of equipment, we have money available to replace one in kind. So the short answer is under works.
Sounds great. So what would you do with the ones that have been replaced? Would that be like auction, sell them off, or
Surplus.
something like surplus? Okay. Thanks.
Could I do a follow-up on that? I've heard comments from the public that the fleet is all shiny and new, and why can't they be like the average citizen? 20, that may not be the average, but we usually hang on to cars till they become expensive to maintain. It would be a shame to auction off something that's performing really well, even though it's 10 years old or something. Would it be on a case-by-case sort of vehicle thing? Just so I can give answers to the public. Thanks.
Yes. So I might not be the best equipped to answer this question. I would recommend getting probably more detailed information from Matthew Shackelford. He's our asset manager and facilities manager and manages our fleet. but I will do my best stab. So as far as new vehicles, I know we have recently purchased new vehicles, so that's no secret to anyone. But as far as, I guess, running the vehicles or equipment till the wheel falls off, like any, I guess, person would do with their own vehicle, there is some assessment again, and that's what Matt and Paul are working on the value of the piece of equipment or vehicle and what we can get from a surplus auction to then feed into the purchase of a new or used vehicle, right? So there's a the term has left me. It starts with a D, the devaluation or depreciation. There we go. So there's a depreciation rate and the cost for a new or used piece of equipment, and trying to find the balance of getting the most out of that vehicle or equipment before it depreciates to a point where when we sell it for surplus, we only get a couple $100 and turn that around into a piece of new or used equipment. From what I've seen, Matt is a bloodhound when it comes to finding secondhand equipment and vehicles and them being in a rather good condition. I know I can't, these numbers aren't exact, but he's definitely got us to a point where instead of buying one new vehicle, we've gotten two or three with the money that would have gone to a new vehicle to get two or three used vehicles. So, we don't always buy new where we don't need to. And we do look to resell and push that value that we received from the surplus item into purchasing of a new one. So that way we take less money from general fund or our water or utility, sewer, enterprise funds, things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Larry.
This is on the levels of service standards, the second paragraph, the very last part. If funding is not available to bring the service back to the established level, then the LOS is re-examined to determine if it's adequate. Are we saying it's adequate or should we be saying appropriate?
I think it's that. I think you're right.
Okay.
Because as soon as you said that, I was like, that's not the right word. So I always appreciate your comments, Larry, because you always find that in there. I think that's right. And just a side note on it, that is a requirement of the Growth Management Act, is that if the funding's not available, we don't just give up. Like, there is a process that we have to go through to ensure change of level service. And the thing that's tricky about capital facilities is that water level of service is instantaneous, as we expect, and the similar for sewer. So the level of service adaptation really occurs for parks and recreation or transportation. For water and sewer, they're going to stay what they are because it's a public health issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on this page before we move to the next? Okay, let's move to the next page, which starts at the top with policy CF 2.1. How about this page? So it finishes up level of service and then goes into ensuring adequate capital facilities. Yes, Larry.
This is in the paragraph under 623. The paragraph that starts with the GMA requires that public. There's in parentheses, I'm not understanding, or for some types of facilities that a financial commitment is made to provide the facilities within a specified period of time. I'm not clear on what that means.
Okay. I'll start it off, and Nick, you might decide if I said it enough specificity, if you have anything to add. So concurrency primarily is related to transportation, and what that means is that the facility is either in place at the time of development or will be within 6 years. And so what that parenthesis is trying to say is that there's a financial commitment either by the city and or the developer, or a combination of both, that facility improvement will be in place within the 6 years. I'm happy to kind of edit that sentence to be clearer on that. Okay. Is that good? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this page? Yes, okay, I'll let Alex go and then Larry.
Oh, I'm going to steal your typos, Larry.
Yes.
There's a hard return in 621, first paragraph, in a timely. And then on the fourth paragraph of 623, there's a capital C, cities, on the first line. Needs of the C cities capital facilities.
Oh,
And
I see that,
Okay,
okay.
I'm sorry. Can you
oh yes,
tell me them
so
again?
623, ensuring adequate capital facilities.
Oh,
In the
there we go.
fourth paragraph on its top line, you'll see
The hard return. yes.
there's no C city. There's two C's. There's a capital C and a lowercase c. First sentence of the fourth paragraph, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
And then a question for the water system. Oh, and you mentioned instantaneous peak demand together with projected fire flows. So we'd have enough water and water pressure and everything for peak demand at the same time as a fire flow? That's pretty awesome.
So one of the review points that Department of Health looks at when a water system plan is submitted is review of just that. So the instantaneous peak demand is what's known as the peak hour demand. And that is combined with the fire flow demand, which for the city in a residential area, the minimum is 1,000 gallons per minute, maintaining a 20 PSI residual. So basically that's saying we would take our peak hour demand, we would set something on fire and see if our system can keep up. Now, on top of that, actually, another assessment is, everyone using water at the same time, something is set on fire, and our reservoirs being depleted. And so that is kind of assessed from Department of Health as the worst case scenario to make sure that not only can our storage, right, under the first condition I said, can our storage keep up? Do we have enough volume for that? Because the standard runtime for a fire for residential is an hour, so 60 minutes. So 1,000 gallons per minute for an hour at 20 PSI residual is the fire standard. I believe Joel can correct me on that if that's incorrect. But also for an analysis of our sources. If our storage is for whatever compromised, can our sources produce that capacity at peak hour and fire flow? And we satisfy both.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Are you, okay.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna let- Alex,
Okay.
okay, Alex stole your thunder. Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Okay, then while we're on the subject of the instantaneous peak demand, on page 10 of 23, going back a little bit, it showed that our projected housing unit growth over the span of this 20-year period would be 298 more housing units. With the population of 477, I think, and 100. The John Wayne Marina, or I should call it a West Bay development, when it gets rolling, that exceeds that by 2. But I guess there's a ratio for resort houses, and it seemed like you could have a peak even if they're Airbnbs or whatever at some point in the summer. of 600, way more than we projected for a place like that, if when it's completed all of its different phases, that could produce a very high peak demand, possibly. How does that all figure into the equation? Thanks.
And I'm going to start off and then I'll kick it to you. So West Bay is a proposed project. And as I talked about last week is on hold as far as technically incomplete and needing to get additional information to the city, of which water modeling is going to be one piece that Nick will speak about. But I will note that for purposes of this comprehensive plan, we did not include those units as in our land capacity analysis. And that's because the bright line that jurisdictions draw is for that we include what's called pipeline projects, meaning the units that are approved but not yet built. And so they will be captured, on the next comprehensive plan update. However, that doesn't mean that they don't go unnoticed or unevaluated. And that's what we do as part of the review of the master plan. And so I'm going to kick it over to Nick because water was something that was identified very specifically in the technically not complete letter that we sent to the applicant.
So I just want to make sure we're not venturing too far out of the scope of the capital facilities and utilities policy by diving into future projects and plans and things like that. So I'd like to acknowledge that in the agenda, it shows a population growth from 2020 to 2045 of 2,959 in city limits, 477 in our urban growth area. That's for population. So are we talking about these growth numbers that are in the agenda, or are we talking, because I don't recall seeing any growth numbers specifically in this chapter 6?
Excuse me. Maybe I misread that. I see that. Oh, I see. Housing growth. The first one, city limits 1850 new units and UGA 298. That's the growth.
Correct.
And so the 600 is just a third of that, let's say.
Correct.
Oh, I see. It's not new versus existing.
Correct.
I think I misread it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure because
that's great.
I'm more than happy to answer any questions about projects or future use. I just, for the purpose, I would do it offline, right? Outside of the meeting.
I see.
So since I'm here, more than happy to talk about that after the fact, but just so we're talking.
No, that's great. So you're figuring in even like 3 times the amount of new construction as just say that one particular very large theoretical development. So then you're planning for maybe 30% or 50% more water than you're providing now, possibly, or something like that.
And that's when I started this chapter off about what the capital facility plan will be, that's where you're going to see that. So, I mean, when we get to that point, we'll have we'll include an analysis in there. And then the water system plan that has been developed and is awaiting Department of Health approval does assume a 3% growth rate. And that is significantly higher than the numbers that we receive from the state of Washington.
Right.
And that's always a better position to be in because you can calibrate that through your 6-year CIP capital improvement plan process. If you're not achieving a 3% growth rate, and SQUIM has not achieved a 3% growth rate. So the water plan that Nick was referring to shows that we meet the level of service for a 3% growth rate, which is more than what this comprehensive plan is going to be planning for. So what that means in the end is that the plan demonstrates there's sufficient water for this growth plan and more. Right.
Like you're planning for 3% growth when it it's been averaging like 1.2 or 3 or thereabouts. So you're planning for almost twice as much as is actually the growth rate could be or has been. So that's great. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this page? Okay, let's move on to the next page, which starts off at the top with policy CF-3.1. And this talks about water, wastewater, and stormwater needs. How about this one? Any questions or comments on this? Going once? Going twice? Yes, Larry.
On CF 3-1, paragraph number 3, there's a sentence about midway through that says, this may result in the need to evaluate the current financial strategy funding stormwater activities. Do we want to call that stormwater management activities? Perhaps. And then in 6.2-4, the first sentence, city's long-term financing and implementing plan, maybe implementation plan.
Repeat where that's at again.
6.2.4, the first sentence at the end.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're really a good editor, Larry. All right, anything else on this page?
Yeah, how do you do for spec review, Larry? What's your hourly rate?
I'm free. What do I get paid here? I get just a bag of nuts.
And some sparkling water and cookies. That was the deal breaker for me, is the cookies. Okay, so let's move on to the next page then. This one, the first sentence is the identified capital improvement projects are listed in the 20-year list of projects. How about this page? Anything on this one? Larry?
We kind of touched on this earlier, but down in policy CF 4.4, the second bullet says we will revise our LOS standards. I don't know if you want to change that language based on what we talked about, where some things we can't revise, right? Like the water LOS. So maybe it's may revise or something like that, because it sounds like the LOS is really floating.
Right, right. And that's such a good point, because it's not for some of the things, it's just not. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Eileen. And then Alex.
It talks about CF 4.3 about additional revenues, and one of the things listed is city sale or lease of city-owned property. I think of that, this building, Guy Cole Center. Is there like some land that could be affordable housing could be built on? Or is it actually structures on the city property that the city owns?
So there's two questions there. So the first one I heard is, does the city currently own property that could develop for affordable housing? Is that correct?
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's the best way to answer this. Currently, the city does not own property that is unobligated.
Oh.
So we either have open space for park that is obligated for park, or it is much like the civic center area or small parcels that have our booster stations, parcels that currently house facilities that are utilized by the city.
Okay.
I guess another way to put that is we would have to do a conversion of use and title, I would say, even go as far as to say that, to unobligate the property of which its use has been assigned.
Okay.
I don't think I've overstretched myself there.
question.
Now the second question, can you repeat your second question?
That was quite a while ago. Hmm. Well, I think you answered it both, that if there was property available, what could it be sold but since that word obligated kind of closed the question there. Because sounds like everything the city owns is obligated on some level. Is that true? Okay.
So I kind of read this, my understanding of it is that it says utilize every possible funding source to finance capital improvements. And then it goes down to list like monthly user fees and like sale and lease. So I'm envisioning that like the little bread shop over here probably pays a lease or rent to the city for being on a piece of city-owned property. Or if you rent the Guy Cole Center, you're paying rent for that. And those are used to help maintain capital facilities. Am I off base? And I understand that it could include the sale of unobligated property or long-term leases and yada, yada.
Right. So Pandamore is a great example of a lease. Another lease that I just became aware of was with, I believe, is known as the Pioneer Garden Club, Pioneer Park
Oh.
Garden
Yeah.
Club.
Right.
They have an extended lease to operate and maintain Pioneer Park. When we talk about Guy Cole and other facilities of that nature, like I believe it's called Swisher Hall. I just call it the band shell, but its official name I think is Swisher Hall. Those fees turn around and help pay for the maintenance of that facility directly. So there's not so much a capital application for that. So if you're curious what fees we currently what leases we currently maintain on city property, I would reach out to Paul, our Public Works Director, or Amy Doherty, who does a lot of our finance and contract work for Public Works. Both of those folks would be able to tell you with a better level of detail exactly what leases we hold, what our use fees are for our facilities, and give you a good idea about where those monies are being applied, whether it's for operation and maintenance or capital.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this page? Yes, Alex.
In 4.4, the final bullet point there, reassess comprehensive plan and revise it as appropriate to achieve a balance between land use, revenues, and level of service. So has that ever been done to kind of reassess comprehensive plan and revise it on the fly before the 10 years are up?
So not here. It's not my understanding that it has here in Sequim, but I know of jurisdictions that have done it. It's primarily with transportation, where they've lowered a level of service for transportation in order to, because transportation is a difficult capital facility because it's not tied to an enterprise fund or a revenue source like water, like the utilities are. And so as we learned during the transportation, did you want to speak to that? I'll let you go ahead. So I think that it can say both. I think in some cases it is the comprehensive plan, like it is the land use chapter. So for example, if you have a zoning district that is high density, for example, and it's generating a number of traffic that your traffic model is showing failing level of service and that it's difficult at some intersections and it's difficult to either make the improvement or it's very expensive. So the idea that the state legislature had in this, and this policy is actually a direct requirement from the Growth Management Act, is that there's a relationship between what you have in your land use map, your densities, your capital facility needs, and then how to pay for it. And so what this policy, again, and it uses actually some direct language from GMA to say that we're going to, if you can't afford your capital facility plan, you don't throw out the obligation and say, well, we can't do it. You have to go back and kind of relook at the land use assumptions you're making, your level of service standard, if there's a way to change that, to look at your revenue sources to see if there's additions that you can add money to it, and you look at all of it. I do have some kind of side comments regarding the state legislature's, dabbling in zoning standards the last few years that have made it more difficult for jurisdictions to reassess their land use plan. But that aside, the concept is that it is the comprehensive plan, and I think it would merit, say, capital facility plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Karen, we've made a couple changes to the comprehensive plan when it has become necessary, right? Yeah.
I think,
I know
I think
there
we
was a-
made amendments to the comprehensive plan, of course. I
Yeah.
know, and maybe I do not know all the detail. I don't know if there's been changes to level of service.
Well, I think that it was, I
necessary.
can't remember the specific, but I remember that it was something along the lines of something had changed, like a state regulation had changed, which made it necessary for us to update the comprehensive plan. So we sent it to, we made a revision. From what,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
I'm sure that definitely did happen. Yeah. This bullet is specific to kind of this relationship that GMA's established, that if you're finding it, if the jurisdiction's finding it difficult to determine how to finance their capital facility plan, that a step back and relooking at your land use chapter, your level of service, and then the capital improvements necessary and the funding for that. So that's what this third bullet is speaking to.
okay, thank you. Anything else on this page? No? Okay, so let's move on to the next page, which starts with policy CF-5.1. How about this one? How about this page? No? Alex? Oh, Will?
Yeah. I had a brief question about the future development pays its fair share. Is that going to be established within the capital facilities plan? What kind of ratio we'd be looking at? Or is that just a general idea that if a large or small development is coming in, they're going to pay to hook up the sewer? Because that's a pretty common problem with developments is, yes, we want to build 200 houses here, and absolutely no, we do not want to pay for the infrastructure to build said houses.
Is that in policy 5.2 that you're speaking of?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think that certainly that is the intent of every jurisdiction, that a development is going to pay their fair share. The challenge to that is the nexus and proportionality requirement under law and court cases. So I think that the key to implementing this policy is ensuring that the development code for development, the standards that the city has adopted for development for infrastructure is clear to require that as part of development review projects. Another method of ensuring its fair share is establishing establishing GFCs that are appropriate. So that's general connection charges are appropriate to be able to finance that utilities capital facility plan, that component of it. And then for parks and transportation, impact fees are a tool for developers to pay for their fair share. Just as a note, and then I'll see if Nick has anything he wants to add. I will acknowledge that, and I'm sure you have heard that those fees are often used as reasons for why housing and development doesn't occur, because it's expensive. And so I just want to note that it's expensive to manage capital facilities and to manage the city's water, sewer, and transportation system, and that these are the tools that the state has provided the city in order to help pay for that before it transitions to existing development and then it's paid for by the ratepayers. But of course, we all understand it's a balance between, those upfront costs that developers pay and how that translate into housing costs. So, Nick, do you have anything you'd like to add to that I might have missed?
Maybe not so much as add, maybe just provide a second camera to look through as we're getting an idea of what this photograph on growth looks like. Yes, we have fees, general facilities charges, impact fees, things like that. I'd like maybe to take that a little elevation higher. We as a city are ultimately responsible for providing utility services, because this is mainly what it regards to as utilities and developers paying for utilities. We are obligated to provide service to the residents and visitors that enter and live in our city limits. So we and other municipalities commonly use equivalent residential units or ERUs to assess that capacity. So currently, when we look at water, and you can see this in our water system plan, we have X amount of existing ERUs, and we have a projected service ERUs within the city limits in UGA across the 6 and 20-year projection. We have that for our sewer system as well. So long as a development comes in and they are within that growth bracket that we can provide service to, whether it's at our water storage reservoirs, our wells, or at our water treatment plant, our WRF, they will have access by consuming those available ERUs that we have built into our original design. Now, when we talk about a development coming in, right, and growth paying for growth, again, I'll go back to the facility charges and impact fees that we have. The other aspect of that is the development when it comes in, their interior improvements, streetlights, streets, sidewalks, water, sewer, all of those are required for the development to be approved. A developer cannot come in and say, well, we want to put, let's use a real life example, Rolling Hills. We want to put in 215 units, but we don't want to put in the sewer. You guys can put in the sewer, you guys being the city. I would say, I'm sure you would like that, but that's not going to work. You guys have to put in the sewer and then turn it over to us to own, right? So they invest in the interior improvements in the right of way, being the utilities, streets, and all the access, and then turn it over to the city. Now, where things get sticky is when we run into deficiencies in our ERU capacity at our source, right, for water and sewer. So if let's just use small round numbers here. If our WRF, as it's designed, can serve 100 ERUs, and we are currently at 80, and someone wants to come in with a development that's equivalent to 40 ERUs, that would put us 20 ERUs over our capacity at our WRF. Is everyone tracking those numbers right now? That developer, if they want to build here and now, would need to fork over the money to do the design and construction of that WRF upgrade for them to get approved for construction. So those are few and far between. And usually what happens is the source is not of concern. It's the conveyance to that source, right? So there's either a choke point in the sewer collection system, or there's a choke point in the water conveyance system where either pressure can't be met or sewer cannot properly flow through the system. This was the scenario that Port Angeles was in previously when people are saying that their sewer system is at capacity. That meant that those certain branches of sewer lines could not handle, they were too small, could not handle the flow from an increased population. Their treatment plant could handle it, their system could not. When that is the scenario, yes, the developer still must pay for that improvement to occur for them to develop in the here and now. Now, what does happen whenever there's deficiencies like that that are shown that are related to growth, that triggers the city to say, hey, if you as the city want to see growth, which every healthy city wants to see, there's a red flag in the ground here, and this needs to be addressed. Now, it doesn't need to be addressed for that specific development unless that's the only area that's an impact that can develop. It just needs to be upgraded to provide growth in that general area, which more often than not has more than one piece of land that can be built on. To further that, when you do that upgrade, you don't upgrade for the one person that wants to build on that one empty lot. You look at the development capacity of the entire sector that you're looking at to say, okay, we can only serve X amount of people in this area. The capacity is much larger than what we can serve. Do we have the funds available to provide a full build out, an 80% build out, a 60% build out? What makes sense? And that's where you start budgeting and iterating. What can we afford to do and what can we plan on phasing in? So hopefully that wasn't too long of an explanation, but kind of tracking on what the responsibility of the developer is here and now, and how that impacts the capital facilities plan and how we build our CIPs.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Karen.
On the same paragraph, we've got a hard return, the last sentence.
Yes.
I didn't want to leave it up to.
Yeah, leave it. Thank you. I do want to just note too, while I have the floor here, that what Nick just did is like a excellent thumbnail sketch summary of how this all works. So thank you for taking the time to do that, because and to explain it in a way that's like totally layman's terms. Like the engineers talk a little bit differently than that. So I appreciate that a lot about Nick and how he communicates, but truly that talked about how we can take the policies in here, the capital facility plan, and the growth, and how it literally works out in his office as city engineer. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Okay. Will?
Now, I don't want to derail the discussion at all, but I am curious, and maybe this is a conversation for a different day. If there's no developers involved and we have a capital facilities plan, but we have large areas of the city that have been annexed already, where I live is a great example. I'm on River Road. There's a huge area with potential development spaces, but I don't know how on earth running the sewage down River Road is ever going to get paid for.
Right.
Without that. Will the capital facilities plan kind of provide rough timelines relating to annexation, or just looking at areas of concern in particular and then planning for those? Because, I mean, you can't build a whole sewage system that connects to nothing right now, right?
No, that's certainly, that is one of the kind of the challenges of the city of Sequim, with as large, kind of as wide as it is, and the existing infrastructures. And I'm sure that Nick is well aware of those challenges, because You're exactly right. Like the city can't afford to extend its sewer and water to all the unserved areas of the city and to do it within a 6-year or even a 10-year planning period. It's often too expensive for the developer to do it, even with the ability of doing latecomers agreements, which is an agreement authorized by state law that developers can get paid back by folks who will tie into the utilities that they have installed to support their project. So it's actually a real challenge, and it's why you see certain areas of the city develop maybe before other parts of the city. And there's like, I wonder why. Is probably be for ease of utilities is probably what it is. The one thing I'll say, and then I'll see if Nick has anything to add, is that it's my hope with the time and effort that the planning department and its consultant has spent developing a land capacity analysis based on vacant and underutilized land that we're now using as the basis for the sewer modeling as well as transportation modeling, that we're providing some data at the more granular level of what lands at least we anticipate will are available for development that might help inform what parts of the city might develop before other parts of the city during the planning period. And that possibly might inform a prioritization of the sewer plan. I know actually Nick and I were kind of talking about that conceptually, of like how that might work out there. We're just at the beginning phases of that. But again, that will be something that the capital facility plan that we'll be able to see how that works out. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to.
So we, as the city, or pretty much in any jurisdiction, cannot afford to. We cannot afford to have a capital facilities plan based on a field of dreams, right? We do not anticipate that if we build it, they will come. Because we cannot afford to maintain what I'm going to call dead infrastructure. I can provide another real life example of the balance between a developer coming in, an existing facility looking to upgrade, and how the city can assist not only those people or those companies, but also comply with our GMA requirements, and that is our Forest Road Lift Station project. Through coordination with PNNL and with some developers, one of them being Seabrook, one of them being another private developer, these stakeholders and the city coordinated on our lift station. Now, the city did not coordinate because of those developers. It was not driven by developers or PNNL, but we recognized that we as the city did not have sewer infrastructure on the east side of our city limits. Now, those stakeholders did not completely consume all the required ERUs to service that whole east side of the city. So using a developer as a launch pad and an existing company as a launch pad, we developed a plan to service that entire east side of the city, which I believe somewhere around, I want to say it was somewhere around the 1,800 to 2,200 ERU level that currently does not have sewer service, that would have opened up as a result of installing that lift station. Now, do those stakeholders benefit from that? Absolutely. Would they help pay for that? Absolutely. But we go in after someone has come to us with a specific project to better serve the region and promote growth in that region. I don't know if that made as much sense to you guys as it did in my head, but we do not just put pipes in the ground and wait for people to connect to them. At a minimum, we have to have interest and someone committing to using that infrastructure that would better serve the whole region.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this page? Nope. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which starts out with functional plans. And how about this one? Anybody have any questions on this page? No?
We have a hard return on the first paragraph.
I see that. It's almost like it's in the same area each page. Have to. Somehow I think it's when it translates into a PDF, but I'll have to keep our eye out for it. Yeah, exactly. There's exactly to keep an eye on this.
Okay,
I see. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
In 6.3 policy, the final sentence, it actual construction of capital facility alignments will be based upon topography, technical, final engineering design, and property owner willingness. Of course, you'd love to see a whole lot of property owner willingness along West Quimby Road and giving you all this the space for all the sidewalks and all the rest that you'd like to put in. This is probably a little different. I haven't seen the concept of eminent domain in any of this, and is there a city policy on eminent domain or property only? I'm sure you'd always like to have agreements be peaceful and not forced upon people, but I just thought I'd see if there's anything more on. Well, maybe it's too delicate a thing to talk about because it's so complicated legally and all of the rest. Any comment? You don't have to.
No, I take great pride in the fact that through my tenure at the county and so far at the city, I've not had to resort to any aggressive acquisition styles as eminent domain or anything other. I am a strong believer that middle ground and compromise can always be found. It's just a matter of time willing to invest. Saying that, I will say the time I would greatly consider walking around with that bigger stick is in time of emergency. That is the only time I can think of right now where I would be a proponent of using a method like that. But when I approach a project and there needs to be an acquisition, whether it's right of way, easement, my first thought is not eminent domain. My first thought is not how can we take this for nothing. My first thought is how can we work with the property owner for them to feel like they have an improvement to their property and the city has the best opportunity to follow our standards in development.
Right, and that's a very nicely described policy because it's usually to the benefit of the community and the adjoining property for things to get like a nice frontage area for pedestrians and bikes or whatever it might be. So thank you. That's good to hear. Thanks.
Okay, anything else on this page? All right, let's move on to the next one, which starts off with policy CF-6.4 and goes down into citing of essential public facilities. How about this one? Nope. Okay. So let's move on to the next page, which this one starts a couple paragraphs down with utilities, goals, and policies. How about this page? Yes, Will.
Second paragraph.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so let's go down to the next page, which is a bunch of policies starting with UT-1.4. How about this page? Alex?
Yes. In one, of course, there's a hard return, but I think the last line is a repetition almost. Let's see, because it ends, sentence before ends in sufficient supply for emergencies and fire flow protection, then provide reliable water service for domestic use, fire flow protection and emergencies. Maybe that last lines just needs, it was a rework that just need to get cleaned up or something.
Do you think it should be deleted? Because I think that
Possibly.
the previous, you're correct in that the previous sentence addresses domestic use, fire flow, and
Yeah,
emergencies.
Yeah, it appears so, but you could give it some thought. See
Okay,
if
thank you.
that's the case.
Okay, Larry?
Policy UT 1.9. I guess I don't understand how looping the water systems affects the water quality, or is that the service level that the looping addresses?
Bit of both. Want to tackle water looping?
I would agree. I mean, when you say water quality, you talk about the physical characteristics of the water, and looping doesn't improve that. If you wanted to ensure level of service by looping new water, that might make more sense because then that makes meeting fire flow and pressure a lot easier. But under the context of water quality and physical characteristics of the water, like turbidity, acidity, temperature, hard water, soft water, things like that, looping doesn't really do anything. So I'm not exactly sure what the context of the water quality in that sentence is.
So would it be ensure water level of service by looping new water systems and connecting to existing systems? Is that what?
I think that, my understanding for water looping is it did provide, without, this is me not being an expert at all, was that there was a water quality component of it because it allowed for a continuation movement of the water so that there wasn't opportunity for it to kind of sit in the pipe for long periods of time. And so that was my understanding of how water looping just as a, and water looping is having having a water line connected, not just internally, but connected to other, adjacent developments. So that water could be coming in from kind of two different locations within the pipe, and that it kept water movement happening within the pipe. That, again, that is a planner just reciting what's been told to me in the past for water quality. So that this is a policy that I proposed. So I'm certainly going to defer to the city engineer if you don't feel like it needs to be there.
You could keep it broad and say ensure water quality and delivery by looping new water systems and connecting to existing systems to the extent feasible. In reference to that, when you have treated water, there is what's known as chlorine residual that can build up over time when you have an excess of dead end lines. So when you talk about water quality after treatment, then yes, that does reflect water quality. So I think if you just add ensure water quality and delivery, or water quality and reliability by looping new water systems, I think you can cover quite a bit of distance when running that ball down the field on quality and access.
Okay, anything else on that? No? All right, let's move on to the next page.
Okay, I'm stuck on this one. I don't like the proposal because it's not delivery, it's water quality by looping a new water system and connecting to existing systems to ensure, to the extent feasible, to ensure dead water or something stating the purpose of it so people understand, but not because we want to put more words in it, but if you didn't understand it and you didn't understand it, then we need a little more that it's for the purposes of no residual buildup or that there isn't a bacterial buildup in dead spaces. But something, it needs to be a little clearer
Yep.
than,
Yeah, reduction of stagnant water and redundancy in delivery, something
go.
along those lines.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would help people
sorry.
loop it together. Okay,
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Never thought about this.
okay, next page, which starts off with non-city managed utilities. How about this one? I feel like this might be a doozy or nothing at all. So, any comments? Larry?
Telephone. I'm not sure if I'm reading it and I'm just confused. At the end of the first and the second sentence, we're talking about CenturyLink is now Lumen Technologies. And I don't know if that's a corporate name change, but to me, it seems confused. I mean, it's either one or the other. And I would just do a little bit of research and kind of just clean that up and say, it's either CenturyLink or it's Lumen Technologies. And then just be consistent throughout because I was confused, but that was just me. It reads like the corporate name change that they're now operating as Lumen, but I don't.
Oh, I see. So just take CenturyLink out if they're actually
If
Lumen.
they're Lumen now, just take the name CenturyLink out. I don't know.
So there is maybe a benefit to, well, I would agree. I think putting the emphasis on Lumen is probably a good idea because that is the current one, and maybe saying formerly known as CenturyLink.
Yeah.
Same thing with how what is now Astound cable was Wave cable, right? So for the purpose of being able to connect plans and past planning to current, because I've run into this where it, an old plan might have, I mean, I've seen references to Bell Communications, right? And Bell then turned into, I think, maybe like Wilcox, and then Wilcox turned into CenturyLink, and then Century. So, showing a little bit of the depth of bench does have a benefit to it, but maybe just putting emphasis on Lumen, formerly known as CenturyLink, might be a better way to do it. Because I'm sure by the time this comes out and gets published, Lumen will have turned into someone else, and we will need that reference to then go back and change.
So I think that's a very great point. Because these companies are all going to change, do we need to name who the vendor is or just telephone provider, whoever it is, and just leave out a company name? Is that adding anything to our policy by identifying Wave Cable or Lumen Technologies, or that's just a question? And is it, I'm way off, I'm way out in the deep end that I don't know, because cities and municipalities need to do certain things. And I'm relying on you guys to say, yeah, we need the name or not.
To me, it makes sense. We, on all our engineering plans, we provide the name of the company and a contact. So we identify Lumen, we identify Astound, we identify internet or fiber if that is not through those in our plans. So I think it would be beneficial if we're talking about concurrency for our facilities plan and how we detail our capital improvement plan and those plans that ultimately get built. I think having that connection all the way through from top to bottom and bottom to top, to me, would be important. It's not my document, so I'll let Carla simmer on that, how she does. But if she came to me with that question, that's how I would answer.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this page? No? Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is, yes, Alex.
It might be both pages. Oh, might be both pages in a way. We mentioned all of the big guys who jerk us all around, Verizon, AT&T, and seniors, and keep increasing our charges without telling us why when we thought we had lifetime agreements and stuff. So I'm can we mention?
It's very specific.
Can we? Can we?
He's asking
You'll
for
run
a
into
friend.
this point
He's
when you
asking for a
retire. You know, it's really going to pop out. You know, can we mention some local alternatives like Nikola or Oli Pen? I just see the big Fortune 500 guys mentioned that provide home internet and fiber. Just I don't know how it would all fit in or who you want to mention, but it'd be nice to give our local businesses some recognition, maybe.
What was the other one other than
Oli Pen and Nikola.
So if I can,
some have specialties like shooting stuff to
so it's
inaccessible places, and
I might turn the ball back to you guys to say that once this document, or it currently is, open and available for public comment, that those folks come forward and identify themselves. Especially, I'm assuming that there's going to be a draft portion open to the public for review. So you as commissioners, and maybe even bring it up to city council, right, to say, hey, ABC and XYZ trash collectors need to make themselves known to the comprehensive plan and what their service areas are and how they can provide that service. Because as far as the document goes, we could default to what Larry was saying and just say, local trash service, local telephone service, which may or may not be a nationwide provider. So that would be my immediate response is have them come and provide that information, provide what they do, so that way they can be included in the recording and the comp plan.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Will.
I was just going to add, I believe a lot of these larger companies tend to be the ones who built a lot of this infrastructure in the first place, hence why they might be referred to by name. I kind of err on the side of not having company names, but it doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. My second point on this page was maybe instead of cable, which is a pretty quickly dropping off service, mentioning internet specifically for fiber optic services and cable. I mean, I get my internet through coax cable, but I don't know if it matters too much, but I think a lot of people, they're looking for internet to be directly pointed out.
yeah, that's a really good point, because a lot of seniors on fixed income don't get anything but internet connection, and then you just use the little box.
Roku.
The Roku, yes, for everything else, which don't ask me how I know. Thanks.
Hey, Julianne. Nicole has her hand raised. She's the council liaison.
Okay.
Okay, so Nicole, I will unmute you and you can go ahead.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I agree with what Alex was saying. I think because the ISPs change all the time, you could just say customers in Sequim can access a range of services through local ISPs, because we have the local fiber network here too, which is limited to a certain range within the core of downtown through Olipen, but there's 5 or 6 ISPs, and those will change. I guess I don't see the trash service changing anytime, but ISPs, we've got Starlink now. that's just a moving target. And this is a document that's supposed to carry us through a few years. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you for that input, Nicole. I think, go ahead, Larry.
Well, so to kind of continue this whole how the world's changing, everything's right here. Right? And this is all wireless. And I know we don't provide wireless, but we also don't provide cable, and we also don't provide power. But isn't this, as we talk about the future, it's going to be the smartphone or the next iteration of the smartphone that's providing entertainment. I would ask a millennial what their thoughts were, more so than a boomer, but I just see, that's kind of the way things are headed away from. I was going to ask the question, does anybody even use cable anymore? I mean, it was probably 20 years ago. In the next 5 years, it may just not even exist as a utility under our utility plan here. It might just be a add-on, or it might be a dinosaur.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, great comments. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are on the page. We're on the last page. Okay. All right. Last page. Let's go out with a bang. Anybody have anybody on this? Anything on this? Alex?
Yes. On the final point, 3.6, wireless telecommunications shall be camouflaged. I'm all for that most of the time, except for something that, because we're not urban, high density, I don't. I think the most that we have is a bunch of is the Kerry Blake transmitters. Of course, everything's the 5G spec, and there'll probably be a 6G coming out. But most of that is wavelengths that are useful for long distance broadcasting. So they're not in the ultra high megahertz range that you would have to provide very fast throughput at a short distance that would use say 10, 20, 30 gigahertz with a sub-millimeter size wavelength that could fry insects or whatever would be within its range for resonance. In which case, I don't know if you had such a thing, and I'm glad we're not in a dense environment or near a university that would be providing that kind of thing wirelessly. That can all be provided better by fiber directly to the big commercial situation that would need it. But if it were in dangerous wavelengths and intensities, it'd be nice if there were a warning sign. But I don't think we have that situation now, but who knows what the future holds, or even if it's escapable with satellite constellations beaming stuff down out of our control. But I thought I'd mention it now because who knows what the future holds.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Yes. Well,
I just had a quick question about these last two. Does City of Sequim currently have design standards for their disguising of wireless facilities? I used to permit the wireless facilities for the county, and it's generally brown, green paint, that kind of thing. So it's weird looking. No, I don't like the fake trees.
Yeah.
So before addressing that, we jumped from 3.4 to 3.6.
Yeah.
So on the public works side of things, we currently do not have, at least to my knowledge, any standards when it comes to camouflage. One that's inadvertent is the granary. I didn't know there were cell things on there until a couple months ago. And maybe you guys didn't know that till now, in which case I can tell you that there are wireless things attached to the granary there, where I think that's Wells Fargo, and then an unnamed attachment to the granary that's under construction. So we do have them that are kind of incognito mode. And then to my knowledge, we have 2 cell towers that are on city-owned property, one in Cary Blake Park and one up at our reservoir site on Reservoir Road. Now, whether you consider those camouflaged or not, I would consider camouflage in consideration of where things are placed. So the one up Reservoir Road, I would consider camouflage because unless you can see the lights at night that are required when you get past a certain height for aviation, you wouldn't know it was there. The only reason I know it was there is because I was taken up there when I got hired on as a tour of the facilities. So we currently don't have anything, and should something come in that's new, I would definitely advocate for that. Whether it's disguised as a tree or something large that's painted to match skyline or trees. So, but it's a consideration.
So yes, we do. In 1861, we have a definition for stealth design, which is technology that minimizes visual impact of wireless communication facilities by camouflaging, disguising, screening, and or blending into the surrounding environment. Examples include, but are not limited to, facilities designed as trees, flagpoles, bell towers, and architecturally screened roof-mounted antennas. And then there is a section in this chapter 1861-030 for when these are proposed within specific zones for a type and max height, and then all but highway, commercial, PRC, planned resort community, and major parks and open space. All of those are required to be stealth. So all the other ones are just either restricted by height or are determined by the master plan and or any sort of contract. So stealth design is a consideration.
Nicole has her hand up again, so go ahead.
Okay.
Unmute here. I don't know if Matt's there, but he's heard my comment on this. I don't know if it's a policy thing or a code thing, but under UT 3.3, where it talks about restoration to pre-construction conditions or better. Right now, and again, I don't know if this is the appropriate place for it. I'm leaning on you for this. But when we have developments go in that require landscaping, I think if there's any way to somehow incorporate something where it says if we're requiring landscaping as a city, that it should be landscaping, if it's under power lines, that doesn't grow to a height that goes into power lines. This is kind of a win-win because the city and the PUD both get calls complaining when they have to get chopped back dramatically. And it would be best if, like, I'm thinking about Lavender Meadows, if there was just nothing planted to begin with that was going to grow into those power lines. So I don't know where the best place for this is, but I thought it kind of applied to 3.3 and then would get translated over to the code. But that's what I wanted to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. What do you think? What do you guys think of that? Will?
Does the city have a landscaping plan?
Yes.
Huh?
Landscape standards.
Is there provisions for stuff under power lines? The county just redid theirs and it does have those provisions.
We will.
Oh,
That's all I can say. Because currently landscaping standards, the section of code has been repealed since I believe the 90s. So landscaping standards live within specific types of applications. So design review has landscaping requirements, but does it say that those things specifically about height? No, not necessarily. Only as it relates to screening and buffering and those kinds of things, but does not give any, considerations for overhead power. If you guys have noticed, the trees at QFC got cut for this exact reason. I did talk with PUD during that, and so we have coordinated with them to at least give them what we think would be an appropriate solution if they wanted to remove them. That absolutely, it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense to plant them with something that aren't going to have to get cut down again. So I think we all agree that let's get it right and not have to come back 20 years from now and go, man, why didn't we think of that? So I think not in today, but yes, as of what we've dealt with in the past year or so, definitely makes a lot of good sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Alex?
What a great topic. It is the option of undergrounding power lines implemented in various places already in the comprehensive plan or in existing code and all of that? Because it seems like we ought to take advantage of every special federal, state money, everything wherever possible, and for the sake of resilience and beautification of the city to do so. Thanks.
As that's not a city utility, I would have maybe Nicole potentially answer that.
Hey, she's the one.
if she wants to, but Nicole?
Yeah, I could speak to that. Like right now we have a project going on Diamond Point underground, a certain section that's habitually got trees coming into it because the right of way is not wide enough for the private property trees to not come down in it. But we're actually leaving the poles up. We're undergrounding power, but leaving the poles up because there's a lot of pole attachments with people like Astound, CenturyLink. It really, when the development goes in, is when they decide whether they want overhead or underground power, because underground is a lot more expensive. And then when you have to repair a fault, you've got to go along and detect it and potentially dig up somebody's driveway. So there's pros and cons, and it kind of just depends on what the major developer wants to do.
So that's where I can step in. So as part of development, we require interior improvements for power and communications to be underground. We also require for frontage improvements, those power and communication elements, if they're on the applicable side of right-of-way, to be transferred underground. Also on capital projects, if the scope of the project involves the portion of corridor where there is above ground power, communications, or both, we move them underground. If there are no power or communications for a project that the city is doing for a capital project, which is not something I have run into before, but if it comes about, then that's where we would go to the PUD and say, are you looking to expand your facilities in this area? And if they are, then we would coordinate and prefer to have underground, especially if it's in the right of way. Outside of the right of way is whatever the PUD wants to do and whatever they can get property owners to agree to. But if it's in the right of way, I am going to push for underground power and communication.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the last page? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Do you have any questions for us at all?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carla, and thank you, Nick and Travis for your contributions.
Nicole.
And Nicole, definitely Nicole. Yes. Okay. All right. So then if we're done with the draft of the capital facilities chapter, let's move on to the director's report.
On Christina's behalf, I don't have anything else to add other than kind of what we talked about under the comp plan status update.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? Nothing? Okay. Then let's move on to our last agenda item, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, meeting is adjourned at 7:04.